Hey guys, Jay here with Word of Advice TV, and in this video I'll be showing you how to replace the bake element on an electric oven. If your oven is not heating, there's a good chance that the bake element is bad, but that's not always the case. Sometimes the board is simply not sending you power. So I'll also be showing you how to test and check the bake element to make sure that it's really bad. I'll show you where and how to order a new bake element, and during the video I'll also be addressing frequently asked questions that people get when they start replacing their bake element. Lots of good stuff, many things to cover, so let's just jump right in. The first thing you want to do before replacing anything on your oven, before taking anything apart, is to turn the power off. And here's a frequently asked question. Is it possible to replace the bake element without turning the power off? And the answer is yes, it is possible. But 240 volts can be rather shocking. It's also possible that you will meet your maker earlier than you expected. So if you want to avoid that possibility, it's best to always turn the power off. Personally, I like to just unplug it. That way I know for sure that the power is off. Or it's also possible to just turn the oven breaker off on your breaker panel. To unplug it, what I like to do is to just pull the bottom drawer out. Most ovens, by the way, every different brand will have its own little uniquenesses, but for most ovens, the drawers come out this way. You pull it out all the way, you lift it up, and then it slides out completely. Some of them will have little slide rails on the sides with tabs. You press one of the tabs up, the other side down, and then you're able to pull it out completely too. So you take the bottom drawer out, just move it out of the way, and oftentimes, the electrical plug will be on the floor way behind the oven. And as you can see, that is not the case for me. So I will have to pull the oven out a little bit to be able to unplug it. But many of the ovens that I work on, that plug is almost always on the bottom. So I can reach in and unplug it without even having to pull the oven out. When pulling the oven out, the easiest way to do it is to prop the door open and reach in and grab the ceiling of the oven. And then slightly pull up and pull it out. The reason I pull up and pull is just in case there's some kind of gunk on the legs of the oven, it's not going to scratch up your floors. Once we have the oven out, we can see our plug right here. Just go ahead and unplug that. They're usually pretty stiff, so you have to wiggle them as you're taking them out. And by the way, just a warning to all of you, one time I was unplugging this, and since they're stiff, I got it about halfway out and it wasn't coming out. So without even thinking about it, I automatically reached in to get a better grip and my fingers touched those prongs. My lights went out for about a second. I got lucky it was nothing more. But that's really dangerous, so make sure that you do not touch those prongs anywhere. Only the rubber part of the plug. Just fully unplug it. Or even better yet, wear gloves during this whole entire process. Now that it's unplugged, I'm going to go ahead and push it back in for now. The same way, I pull up a little bit and then just push it in. That'll be enough. Another thing I like to do is take off the oven door because the bake element is under here. So I'm going to either have to go from this side, or to make my life easier, I can just take the door off. On most ovens, the doors come off pretty easily. There's these locking tabs on either side. You unlock them, and then you'll be able to take the door off. Once again, all ovens are different, so there's a chance that yours might not be like this. It might be a little different. Now that I have the hinges unlocked, I can take the door out. And it just slides right out. All right, so now it's much easier for me to access the inside of the oven. Before we continue, let's just quickly go over how to order and where to order a baking element. On most ovens, the model and serial number of the oven will be right behind the bottom drawer, either on the left or the right side. And the model and serial are written right on there. It's also possible that it could be on the oven door itself or somewhere on the oven cabinet on the inside of the door. And on some ovens, the model and serial number may be behind the oven on a little tab right behind on the top there. What I like to do is to simply take a picture with my phone and then use that model number to order my part. And just a quick tip, if you use a flash on your phone, almost guaranteed that that picture will not be blurry. And I know that some of you would love to see where and how I ordered mine, so let's jump on my computer screen real quick and I'll show you how I did it. Once you have your model and serial number, go to repairclinic.com and put in your model number into the search box. As you're typing it, your oven should pop out in the drop-down list. On the left side, there should be some categories, and one of them will be bake element. Click on that. The bake element that comes up should look exactly the same as the one in your oven. On Repair Clinic, this part costs $177, which is too expensive. So what you can do is copy the genuine part number, go to Amazon or eBay, and look up that part number. As you can see, the prices here are much lower. The one I got is this one right here. It only cost me 35 bucks, which is of course a lot better than the 177 at Repair Clinic. Alright, so back to the oven. On some ovens, the element will be visible. It'll just be sitting here, just right on top, just like my broil element is. If we look above, there's the broil element. On some ovens, the bake element will be sitting in a very similar fashion right on the bottom right here. In my case, it's behind this bottom panel, and to get there, I just need to take out these two screws in the back. So let's go ahead and do that. And just a heads up, some of these screws can be really hard to take out, or they can be really rusted. Like this screw, the head of it is kind of stripped out. So hopefully I can do it by hand, and I can. Kinda, there you go, it's coming out. Otherwise I could use a pair of pliers to just grab it and twist it a little bit at a time. It'll take a while, but it'll get the job done. Also, when you're putting the screws back in, sometimes they're either stripped out or there's just no way that they will go back in. If you're completely out of options, then I would say it's okay to leave the screws out. Don't even put them back in. Preferably, you do want to put the screws back in, but if you can't, it won't be the end of the world. Okay, so I got the screws out, and an easy way to lift the panel is to just go by one of the screw holes and lift up. And now I'm gonna pull this thing this way. After I got it tilted up, just wiggle it until it comes out. And there's the heating element. Oftentimes if it's burnt out, you're gonna physically see it. It'll be a burnt out spot and little pieces of the element. And if it was shorting out while you were there, you would have probably seen fireworks and sparks and stuff like that while this was burning out until you turned the power off. But just so you know, just because there's no burnt spots doesn't mean that the element is good. It could be shorted out internally. So there's no damage on the outside, but inside the little wire is burnt out. So let's go ahead and take this old element out. Usually it'll just be held in there by two screws in the back. On mine, I also have two screws in the front as well. So I just take all those screws out. Usually a 1/4 inch socket is what you need. And after you got the screws out, you can pull the element out. You may need to tilt it upwards as you're pulling it out. See how it's bent in the back there? So you have to pull it up as you're pulling it out and just wiggle it. Okay, got the wire connectors right there. And if you get lucky, you should be able to pull them out pretty far out. Sorry, I'm gonna sidetrack just a little bit while I notice this. See how loose this clip is? This is where the screw goes in. So if this is gonna be slidden off like this, then of course I'm not gonna be able to put my screw back in. So what I like to do is just crimp down on this with a pair of pliers, just a little bit, so it's more tight and not sliding around all over the place like that. There you go. Nice. Now it's on there real good. It's not sliding back and forth. But anyway, back to the element. Sometimes these wires, they won't have a lot of slack, or basically there won't be spare wire for you to be able to pull it out like this. You're only going to be able to pull it out a little bit and it won't be able to come out any further. Or as you're pulling it out, these wires will get disconnected. In that case, your only other option is to pull the oven out and do it from the back. But don't worry, I will show you how to do that a little bit later. If you are fortunate enough where you can pull it out like this, then life is easy. All you gotta do is put the new element in and put these wires on the new one and you're set to go. So we got our new element right here. It may come with these connector prongs slightly bent, and yes, it is okay to bend them back. So just kind of look at how your other one is. Mine is straight. And bend them the same way. You don't even need pliers, they're pretty pliable. So what I like to do is to put the new element right over the old one and go wire by wire. Because if you take these wire connectors off from the old element, they might snap right back into the oven. And then it's really hard to fish them out from there. If you're unable to grab them somehow, then of course your only other option is to pull the oven out and do this from the back. So I like to grab this wire so it doesn't go anywhere, unplug it, and keep holding it. If I let it go, it could sink back into the oven. And then just plug my new one right in. Like that. And sometimes these connectors can be on there really stiffly and you can't pull them off by hand. In that case, if you have a pair of needle nose pliers, or just any pliers, needle nose are easier to use though, grab that connector and just wiggle it back and forth as you're pulling on it. There you go, and that should snap right off. And because the old one is on the bottom, it's kind of an awkward position, so I'm going to go ahead and take the old one out. And what you can do with the connector is just put on a zip tie on it, or some kind of a clip or a hairpin, just anything. I'm going to use a clothes drying clip like this to hold that in place while I go ahead and take the old element out. Every oven is different. On some of them you can pull the wire out almost up to here. In that case it's really easy to work with it. On this one I can only pull it out a little bit, and then there's other ovens where you can barely pull it out at all. With those, it's almost easier to just do it from the back because you're gonna really struggle trying to put on the new connectors. But with the wires like mine that come out a little bit, a good option would be to put on a clip like this to prevent the wire from slipping back in. And when you're ready to put the connector on, you can take the clip off and slide the new connector on. After you have both wires hooked up, put the element back in the same way you took it out. Just like that. And as you can see, my bracket right here is bent and it's not lining up with the screw hole. So it is okay to bend this back. Otherwise, it's not gonna line up. The easiest way to bend it is to put this screw in first. So just lift it up so it lines up. Put in the screw first. And sometimes it's easier to do this by hand. There you go. After you have the screw in there, keep it just a little bit loose. And you can try to bend this back like that. This one is not lining up by a little bit either. So I just need to push this over slightly. And I can put the screw in. There you go. The front brackets are a little bent too, so I'll bend them forward. Okay, and our new element is in. And before we put everything back together, it's good to test it out and make sure it's working. So what I'm going to do is take the oven back out, plug it in, and then we can turn this on and see how the element is working. So I have the oven set to bake. This should start to heat up. And just as a heads up, these new elements, they come covered in a thin layer of oil that burns off the first time you turn the element on. So if you see a little bit smoke coming from it, that is normal. And you do want to do this to air it out first before you bake anything. Otherwise your cookies might taste a little bit like oil. Well, there you go, perfect. We know that the element is working. You can see it turning cherry red, which is exactly what we want to see. So I canceled the bake, and now I'm going to wait for this to cool off a little bit before I put the bottom panel back on, just in case I accidentally touch it. I don't want to burn myself. Okay, so it cooled off a little bit, and I simply got tired of waiting. So I just put some gloves on, and I'm going to go ahead and put this bottom panel back in the same way I took it out. So I slide that in there first, and then just drop it in. Voila. And if my clips are in the right place, the screws should go in really easy. And that is the easy way to replace the bake element on your oven. Now, I just want to address two more frequently asked questions. The first one is, how do you replace the broil element, the element that's up on top? And it's literally the same exact way. The screws are just mounted to the top instead of the bottom, and you would replace it exactly the same way. Second question is, what if my bake element is not here, but instead of this bottom panel like you have, mine is completely seamless? You just can't take the bottom off. There's absolutely no way. In that case, that means that you have a hidden element. So the baking element is only accessible from the back. And speaking of the back, let's pull the oven out, take the back panel off, and see what's going on behind there. Okay, so there's the back of the oven. And by the way, when I'm doing this at a customer's house, usually I would just pull it out up to about the cabinets and then hop behind there so I don't have to drag the feet anywhere around the floor, just in case there's going to be any scratches. Usually not, but sometimes it does scratch. So to avoid that, I don't completely pull this out, I just jump behind there. But for the video, so we can see better, I pulled it out here. To access the bake element, you have to take this panel off right over here. So let's go ahead and do that. Once again, it's 1/4 inch hex screws. And by the way, notice how I left my gloves on? That's because this sheet metal is thin and it cuts you really easily. I've been cut more than once, so I prefer to leave my gloves on for this. There you go. And if you only take this back panel off, the cord is still on here, which is fine. Just kind of set the panel to the side or on the floor, and you have access to everything you need right here. So these two wires, these are our baking element, and you can actually see the element right here behind the insulation. So that's what it looks like behind here. And there's our broil element right over here. Also 2 wires. Sometimes some of these bake elements will have 3 wires. It'll have 2 wires going to one side and 1 wire going to the other. Typically those will also be screwed on connectors. In that case, whenever you're replacing it with a new element, just put in the new one in the same way. So 2 wires going to one side and 1 wire going to the other side. So if you were unfortunate enough and your wires slipped back into the oven, when you take the back off, this is what it would look like. You could simply put the new element in and screw it on. And this is what it would look like. Your element would just be sticking out and your wires would probably be lost somewhere in here. So once you take the back off, you can just pull these wires out and hook them right on. And one more quick tip. These connectors, sometimes they get loose. So if you notice that they slide on super easy and they're kind of wobbly on there, what you could do is crimp down on these connectors just a little bit so that they make a tighter connection. And I also said that I would show you how to check if the heating element is bad or not. To do that, you will need a multimeter, or at least a voltage detector, or a voltage pen. So with a multimeter, there's 2 ways that you could do this. You could either check resistance, or you can check voltage. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my meter to resistance, this omega symbol right here. And if the element is bad, it'll say OL, like this. If it's good, we're gonna get some kind of a reading. So let's go ahead and take these wires off. Again, whenever you're checking resistance, you don't want the wires to be connected. So no wires on the terminals. And I'm going to put one lead on one terminal and the other lead on the other terminal. And as you can see, I have about 15 ohms, which is a regular reading for an element. Most of them are going to be around the 15 range. If it was bad, we would simply see OL. So let's put these wires back on. You only check resistance with the power off. Power off, wires off. That's the only time you check resistance. Now, if we're checking voltage, of course we do need the power on, and you do need to be a lot more careful when you're checking voltages, because once you plug that back in, a lot of these terminals are going to be live. So tread carefully. I have these wires back on. This time I'm actually going to use the leads instead of the alligators. Let's plug our oven back in and check voltages. I'll show you how to check if the element is good using voltage. So in front of the oven, this thing is called the electronic clock, or ERC, electronic range control. Basically, it's the oven control board. Sometimes what happens is this thing is not sending power to the bake element. So it's not the element that's bad, it's this thing that is bad. And doing these tests will help you figure out which one of them is bad. So I'm going to go ahead and go to bake, turn it on to anything. Let's just do 370. Broil would be the same thing. You would turn on the broil and see if you're getting any power. So I set it to 370 and the light came on saying that the oven is heating. So right now we should be getting 240 volts going to the baking element. So I'm going to set my meter to voltage and check to see if my bake element is getting 240 volts from the control board. So I put one meter lead on one side and the other meter lead on the other side. And as you can see, 240 volts. So the bake element is getting power. And if you're using a voltage detector, same concept. You just touch the wires and it's beeping. So we do have power going through these wires. So let's go ahead and turn the oven off. I'm going to cancel the bake and try again. Look at that. The voltage pen has no reading at all. So there's no power going to it. And if we check it with the meter leads, once again, one lead on one side and one on the other, we got 0 volts. So there's no power going to that bake element. But there are some ovens that keep one leg energized at all times. And what I mean by that is, instead of 240 volts, you'll have 120 volts sitting at the element all the time. That is why you don't want to replace the bake element while the power is on. There's always that chance that there might be some power going through that element. And when you touch the wires, it could zap you. So in conclusion, if you set your oven to bake and it's not heating up, and when you go to check the voltages, there is power going to the element, that means the element is bad. If you set it to bake and there's no power going to the element, that means that control board is bad. So hopefully those of you that are technicians or know how to use a multimeter found this piece of info helpful. I almost just did this mistake myself, so I want to remind you one more time. When you're putting the panel back on, I was going to do it off camera, when you're putting the panel back on, make sure your power is off. Turn the power off before putting the panel back on. If any of this metal stuff touches any of these prongs, this will get energized and you could get shocked. And that is all I had. I sincerely hope that you found this video helpful and all your questions were answered. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to mash that like button and I'll see you next time. And if you're still here and not in the comment section below, let me tell you about this one guy. So he's walking down a sidewalk and there's a fence there. Behind the fence, he hears people chanting. And all he hears is 41, 41, 41, 41. So as he's walking down the sidewalk, he's just baffled. What's going on there? And he sees a hole further down in the fence. So out of curiosity, he comes up to that hole and sticks his head in there. And right when he sticks his head in, a cake just smashes into his face. And as he's standing there dumbfounded, he hears the chant continue. 42, 42, 42, 42.